Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm happy to be talking with you today about the astrological configurations and how they're reflected in the world over the coming week. I use Vedic astrology or Indian astrology or Jyotish is known by any of those names. And it's an old system of astrology, some say dating back 5,000 years. And it's a very complicated system of astrology, but I try to make it understandable to the audience tuning in, because I'm not trying to get into all the different layers of it. So I do teach astrology. If you'd like to contact me, my phone number, let me put the captions on. If you want to contact me, my phone number is 508-525-0001, or you can contact me you can text me at that number, or you can call me at that number, either one. And my email address is garygomesg@gmail.com, and we can discuss what kinds of charts, what kinds of services I offer. And I've been doing this for over 30 years. I've held several organizational chairs and taught at a variety of institutions. I am working towards getting, I do a lot of instruction, one-on-one, and I'm hoping to move to group classes soon, but that takes a little bit of time, and I've been promising that for years. I am also working on a book. I'm also working on getting additional videos uploaded to this channel with interviews with people who I respect and admire. And also, if you're interested in showing up with me and discussing astrology, I'd be happy to have you. Just contact me at 508-525-0001, and I'll be happy to talk with you, and we can discuss a topic and set up a time. Okay? All right. So enough of the publicity. Let me see if I can share a chart with you to show you what's going on astrologically right now. I use this as the foundation for every show because I find it very useful. Okay, let's stop. The share isn't working. Let's try that again. All right, it seems to be working now, but one more time for luck. And one thing I would like to discuss just quickly is the combustion. So there's a phenomenon in Vedic astrology called combustion. And so if you see the chart, the sun is at 20 degrees, Jupiter's at 0 degrees, 46 minutes, Venus is at 12 degrees, 9 minutes. Now, Venus and Sun are going to be, all right, so in classical Vedic astrology texts, they talk about combustion very, very, or prominently, but to be honest with you, it's really, in a lot of the texts, it's really not, it's just mentioned, and a great deal of emphasis is not given to it. I actually think that's correct. I think what happens with combustion, so combustion happens when a planet is really close to the sun. So in Venus and Mercury's case, that happens a lot because the planets are really close. They're not more than, usually not more than 30 degrees away from the sun. Mercury is rarely more than 23 degrees away from the sun. And so those planets are going to be combust a great deal. This is not really, they're going to be within the range of combustion. A book like Parashara, Parashara, which is a classical Vedic astrology book, gives really what I would call outsized ranges for combustion. It's a respected book. I have nothing against Parashara, but what I've found with combustion is it tends not to affect the significations of the planets quite so much as the houses they rule. So combustion right now, the sun and Venus are around 8 degrees apart. Jupiter and the sun are around 10 degrees apart. The combustion range for Jupiter is around 14 degrees. The combustion range for Venus is around, if I recall correctly, around 15 degrees. They're within combustion range. Practically, in terms of how it affects the actual planets, the combustion range often slinks down to, or slides down to around 3 degrees, or so you will see what's called a Cazimi conjunction of Sun and Jupiter within about 10 days. Now, Cazimis are actually, that's a Middle Eastern term. It's an Arabic term. Cazimis are actually considered to be really auspicious because the Sun and Jupiter act as one unit. So you'll see a lot of, I'm trying to think of a good way to put it. You're going to see a lot of right action being taken, a lot of conclusions to events being undertaken, a lot of what I would call protection of existing forms or systems. Okay, so that's within about 10 days' time, 10 to 12 days' time, we'll have that Cazimi. That Cazimi only lasts for a couple of days because the sun's going to pass Jupiter pretty quickly. Venus is creeping up on the sun, but it never quite catches it. And one of the reasons I say that is because they move at relatively consistent rates. So what I would look for more is for June to be more of a problematic month right now because of the sun's influence. And I'll go a little bit ahead to June and show you where things are. So I'm just going to pick June 6th as a random date. Okay? And then I'll go back to this tape. So you'll have Sun and Venus will be in Cazimi on that particular day. Sun will be around 14 degrees away from Jupiter, barely combust. Mercury will be 10 degrees away from Jupiter, and Moon is not subject to combustion. As you go into, so there's always some kind of a financial issue that arises when you have clusters of planets really close to each other. So Saturn's aspecting Mars in June, you'll see some real estate problems pop up. And I know there are some upcoming events happening with commercial real estate. Some banks are over leveraged in terms of commercial real estate, so you can see a small banking crisis at that time. And also, you'll tend to see economic slippage because I have seen, especially in Taurus, a lot of economic backsliding through the years. And I mainly take my experience back to May of 2000, when the internet crash occurred. And there are two um, basic industries which I think are going to be under a great deal of pressure. Oil will certainly be among them, because Saturn aspecting Mars is not good for oil supplies. Okay, Mars rules the Earth. Okay, rules whatever comes out of the ground. Saturn obstructs it or delays it. So that will actually increase inflationary pressure. We're not going to get a break from that really for at least another 4 weeks. I'm sorry, another 4 months. And I would say even longer. But the other thing that we have working is we have all these speculative planets running up against the sun, which is going to kind of shine a light on some of the things that are wrong with these particular planets. The other thing to keep in mind is we have, so those are the types of things I foresee over the next month economically. I think one of the things that we have to watch out for immediately is, again, press coverage is really really poor, really sensationalistic right now. So this goes for, it's interesting that I pulled up this chart that has to do with the ninth house, which is a house of higher education. But you'll see the colleges, because Jupiter, the lord of this house, is Jupiter, and it's just moved into Taurus. So while Saturn was aspecting Jupiter over the past couple of months, the colleges felt restricted in terms of what they could do to stop demonstrations. And we've been through periods like this before. The most active period of which I remember, I'm old enough to remember, was in the late 1960s, when occupations like this occurred. There were some smaller occupations that happened in the mid 80s, but they weren't quite as virulent as these protests are. And the issues, I'm not going to talk about the issues. The issues were South African apartheid, but in the mid 80s. But I think what we're seeing right now is colleges wanting to maintain their reputation as change makers, because we have Rahu in the ninth house of higher education, but Jupiter's also in the house of money, so it's going to start to affect them financially. Also, there are some lies coming out regarding the college protests. We know that. There are some lies coming out in terms of court cases. We know that as well. And it's interesting because months ago, I predicted actually it was over a year ago, I think, I predicted we would see the right and the left coming together on issues connected with the government. It doesn't mean they're perfectly aligning, but they are coming together on issues connected with freedom of speech. So it doesn't mean all of a sudden Republicans are going to stop backing Israel or anything like that. But they are coming together on issues connected with suppression of freedom of speech. Also, feelings of being persecuted. That's always an issue. And I think also you're going to see a lot of financial institutions start to put pressure on these folks, some folks from both sides. So I think that's why you saw the situation develop in Congress last week, where Mike Johnson reached a compromise on aid to the Ukraine when it wasn't popular among certain members of his party, and also on aid to Israel. But this dispute, this disruption in higher education will go on for another couple of years. To be truthful, it's not something that's going to go away, at least until the end of 2025, or at least until the end of 2024, I think, but even further, because we'll have Saturn going into the sign in 2025. So, and again, keep something in mind. I'm not pro-government or anti-government, but I am for individual rights. And Saturn aspect in the Sun, Mars and Mercury, along with Rahu. Mars, Mercury, Rahu is trying to create, in terms of the guidance or our teachers or our advisors, is trying to create kind of a panic situation in terms of domestic issues. And that's really for electoral messaging, to be honest with you, more than anything else. I'm going to just come out right away and say it. Everything happening legally right now is in the service of making sure that one candidate gets reelected or gets elected. Okay, so I'm just kidding. I sort of gave it away, but that's really what's happening right now. Now, again, you may think that's a good thing. I have problems with it, not because of any political stance I have, but because I hate to see systems manipulated. It really bothers me at a core level. So I think, especially after about 7 days, you'll actually see suppression of news coming out in both court hearings and also in protests, because Mercury will be essentially still in conjunction with Rahu, and you'll also see more weaponization, more unbridled weaponization on campuses and against political opponents. I'm not looking forward to this. You'll also see more street level violence, which will not be covered. Okay, so just be aware of that over the next couple of months. In terms of the 10th house, the government is sort of supreme right now in terms of, but it's not really trusted. Saturn's aspecting the Sun. The Sun will be in the same sign with Jupiter. It will take up a more righteous position. It will take up a more aggressive position for about, I would say, about another 2 months or so. Then I would tend to say around July, you'll see a lot of the stuff collapsing. And so in terms of public image, Moon is in the 9th house right now. So all this attention is focused on government, is focused on a lot of our institutions like the Supreme Court as well. It's focused on a lot, and this isn't unique to the United States. This is happening pretty much in most parts of the world. I haven't seen planetary combinations quite this aggressive since the late 1960s and early 1970s. And I think you'll see if you can maintain your balance, if you can maintain a healthy skepticism over the next few months, you'll be in better shape. The other thing I want to caution about is we have seen some water damage in places we normally don't see water damage, like the outskirts of Houston and in places like Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and also there's a big lake reforming in California. So I think when we look at the geo map later on, we'll see where some of these things will hit more aggressively. But um, there has been, because of Venus just moving from exaltation, which essentially it brings rain, and now it's in the same sign with the sun and Venus, and it's aspected by Saturn, so it's going to cause some problems or some hardships connected with that rainfall. K2 is in Virgo, Jupiter's in Taurus. Jupiter aspect in K2 will give more aggressive Earth changes. And I'm not talking about global Earth changes. I'm talking about earthquakes and water disasters. K2 is an interesting planet because a lot of people associate it with fire, but it's actually also what's called a kapha planet. That is, it has a lot of water in its constitution. And if it's in Virgo, which is an earth sign, certain critical structures will break down. So I think that's one of the things that to keep an eye on. Also, Mercury being debilitated, we're going to continue to have communications problems over the next couple of months, okay, over the next at least month and a half, because Mercury's leaving Pisces, which means communications get garbled and there's a lot of confusion and a lot of chaos about communications. Mercury is going to move into the same sign with Sun and Venus for a little while, and that will be within about a week. I'll be right towards the end of next week, and that particular combination will give some extra control to the government, or at least an attempt by the government to control the communications, and also, but also, again, one of the neat things about Rahu is it reveals problems. I was watching the testimony in the Trump trial, and it was interesting because you have somebody who was essentially a servant, Jupiter, breaking into Taurus just ever so slightly. But I do feel there was some coercion applied to her to make her testify the way she did. And I think that's why she had the emotional breakdown, just because of the Saturn aspect on Jupiter. The other thing is, I've been looking at different governments around the world. The Labour Party in England looks primed to win the election within a few months. Various world leaders are facing major issues, major problems. And so Lula in Brazil, the current prime minister or president of Argentina, I can't remember his name, I think it's Paleo, and Macron is facing problems, and so is Justin Trudeau, just as a sampler. The head of the Scottish Parliament, or the head of the Scottish Party, excuse me, just resigned. So, and a lot of these are happening mainly because of dislike of what's been happening domestically. Okay, so again, I wouldn't be really surprised to see a lot of changes in governments, as I've been saying for a long time, over the next year. And actually, because Saturn is actually gaining in strength over the next year, it's not losing in strength. You're going to see more conservative changes. Jupiter's entering a more conservative sign. So again, it'll tend towards more control, more reining in of resources. Rahu and Pisces will still push the envelope. And again, remember the nodes, the lunar nodes are the most important, the most powerful things in a chart. So that combination, that Rahu Mars combination is kind of aggressive, but also Rahu will stay in the sign for a while, and you'll see, I would say, a peak of aggression within about a month or so. Okay, so let's go back to your individual charts and your individual signs. So I don't want to sound all doom and gloom, but financially it looks challenging, at least for about a year. Not a major depression, but certainly inflation, certainly an economic slowdown. And I think we're already experiencing it, but into June definitely. And keep something in mind. We had a similar phenomenon happen in Reagan, the latter half of the 80s, where a lot of jobs were converting from good paying manufacturing jobs to, or actually even earlier, good paying manufacturing jobs to service jobs. And now a lot of full-time jobs are reverting to part-time jobs, at least according to the current labor statistics. So that's something to keep in mind. So the unemployment rate is down. There are all these other factors you have to consider when you're looking at an unemployment rate. And also there have been increasing signs that people aren't paying their credit card bills. So so again, we have some problems. Okay. All right. So let's go to, I'm not even going to talk about government spending driving inflation, because I think actually over the past couple of years, I tend not to take that position, but oil prices will encourage government spending. Government spending will encourage economic growth, and high cost of real goods do produce inflation. So this is not really rocket science. This is really rather rudimentary economics. Okay. So let's say the easing of the monetary supply in the aughts was actually okay, because the demand was down, because people weren't working. It was a very slow recovery. Now people are working, they need things, they put up buying things, or else they overcommitted during COVID because they had some money coming in. When they didn't have the demands on them. And in the meanwhile, prices went up. So things that cost 10% less 2 years ago now cost 10% more, and you start to feel the pressure. All right, so that's enough pontificating. The optimistic thing is this cluster of planets in June will actually cause a lot of stuff to come out, a lot of breakage to come out. Okay, so if you can't see a problem, you can't correct it. Right now, there's been a lot of work on people trying to obfuscate or hide the problem. So let's go to Aries. Let's go to the individual signs. Sun is exalted in Aries right now. Venus is in the first house. There's a lot of focus on financial growth for this sign, which is a good thing. relationship life looks promising for the sign. Work life looks, though, like it has to be funded by a lot of part-time activities, and friends or desires will cut back income. Also, the sign is not very sure of itself. It's worried about the future. Uh, so again, there'll be a tendency to try to grab stuff right now because you can. And I just think panic buying is not a good idea. So Aries has to watch out for panic buying. For Taurus, Taurus has Jupiter in the first house. Jupiter in the first house is normally a good placement. It's the ruler of the 11th house of gains and the 8th house of hidden enemies. And so there'll be some legacies coming to the sign or some financial gains from partnerships. But also, you have to watch out for locking your money and also for, again, spending too much because you feel too optimistic. Jupiter in a sign connected with Libra, with Venus, tends to produce over optimism that will crest, I think, in June to July. Okay. The other thing is, for this sign, friends are not to be trusted. Watch out for friends. The same is true of Scorpio, as I've said before. So this is May 15th to June 15th birthdays. And Saturn means a lot of hard work for the sign and a lot of unnecessary expenses. So just try to cut back a little bit on luxuries. For Gemini, Gemini has Mercury in the 10th house, a lot of career activity for the sign. It's not necessarily a bad placement. If we look at the Navamsha chart, let's see how Mercury's placed. It's in Aquarius, which is not really the best sign placement for it, but it's okay. And at least it's not as bad as it being in Pisces. But I think one of the things that we can look at from this Navamsha chart is this sign will tend to be a little bit overly generous with children, a little bit overly generous with friends, and a little bit worried or anxious about money. That'll pass within about, I would say, within about a month or so, because you'll have some good planets in the 11th house. K2's in the 4th house, so some disruption in home life. Saturn's in the 9th house, so keep on working. All the effort you're putting in will pay off, but it will be frustrating, to be honest. But a lot of career recognition with that Rahu, Moon, Mercury, Mars conjunction. Sun and Venus are in the 11th house, so that's good for financial gains. But again, watch out for excessive spending. Jupiter's in your 12th, so just be careful. Leo has Sun is exalted in the 9th house, still aspected by Saturn, though, in the 7th. So this will make partnerships a little bit slower, sluggish, but they will start to show some gain. You'll start to show some financial gain this month. K2's in the 2nd house. It's very easy to misunderstand this sign this month. Saturn in the 7th, some relationship difficulties are indicated. Oh, I don't know if I did Cancer. Let me go back to Cancer. Cancer looks good. Moon is in the 9th house. Some anxiety about relationship life, I think I said before. But career life looks good. Gains look good. But again, some bad judgment about expenses. K2 in the 3rd house, a lot of courage. The sign will show a lot of courage. Some anxiety about relationship life. For Leo has, so I'll go back to Leo again. Leo has Saturn in the seventh house. This is a little bit detrimental to the sign, although Sun is exalted, Lord is exalted in the ninth house, and we have this cluster of planets in the eighth house. So if you're expecting big gains, they'll be delayed or they'll be obstructed this particular next couple of weeks. You might get some gains of property within about a month or so. And also, K2's in the second house. The sign has difficulty making itself understood, which I said before. Jupiter in the 10th is very good for career life. Your career profile will expand a lot over the next year. For Virgo, Virgo has K2 in the first house, Mercury, Mars, Moon in the seventh house. So there'll be a lot of problems with relationship partners, a lot of problems with honesty with the relationship partners, and a little bit of hidden things coming out connected with them. Now, this also tends to mean partnerships are a little bit screwed up, at least until, at least for about another week, after which partnerships should be able to move forward, but with some hesitancy, because we still have Rahu in this sign, and people will tend to overpromise. Saturn's in the sixth. That's actually not a bad placement for Saturn. Saturn makes this sign strong, courageous, able to overcome illnesses. Sun and Venus are in the eighth house. That's not a bad combination for gains from the government. Jupiter's in the ninth house. That's very good for luck for this sign. So you'll actually start to acquire more luck, maybe more students over the coming year, maybe more generosity from people. For Libra, Libra has Venus in the seventh house and Sun's in the seventh house. So there's a lot of focus on relationships. There's a lot of focus on gains. It's actually a positive planet for gains, although gains will seem to be very hard to come by. They'll seem to require a lot of work, a lot of revisiting of the past with mistakes that the sign has made. Mars, Rahu, and Mercury and Moon. So maybe a little bit unrealistic about who your enemies are or who your friends are. So I wouldn't really take up any new partnerships for the sign for at least for another week or so. And let's see now. Jupiter's in the eighth house, so there should be some potential for gains, but more down the road, more towards August or September. And let's see now. So that's about all we have for Libra. But relationship potential is strong for this chart. But again, you'll attract bossy or difficult people. And like I said, I would wait before I engaged in any new business partnerships for at least about a week. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Jupiter in the seventh house. Saturn's in the fourth. So again, still some problems with home life. Some problems with children. Children seem to be a little bit deceptive or a little bit untruthful. Sun, Venus are in the sixth house. That's not a bad placement, but it can give some arguments or struggles with wife, relationship partners. There may be a temptation to cheat for this sign, unfortunately, or to be dishonest, not necessarily cheat in terms of sexual matters, but to be dishonest. K2's in the 11th house, so again, don't trust your friends. For Sagittarius, the good thing is the Venus-Sun combination in the fifth house is generally a lucky combination for this sign. For Sagittarius, Venus-Sun in the sixth house is generally a lucky combination for Scorpio. For Sagittarius, we have Saturn in the third house, so it gives this sign a great deal of courage, ambition. Mars, Rahu, and Mercury in the fourth house, so a lot of confusion over home life, over what people want. Fifth house has Sun, Venus in it, so children will tend to do well. Sixth house is Jupiter. Um, Watch out for overindulgence, especially in eating and intoxicants. K2's in the 10th house. That's not a bad placement. But again, there is a little bit of under recognition for what this sign does. For Capricorn, Capricorn has Saturn in the second house, so there's a very strong desire for security or stability. Also, Sagittarius, just going back to Sagittarius, strong desire for self-improvement over the next year. That'll be extraordinarily strong. For Capricorn, again, a lot of focus on wealth, a lot of desire to achieve through any means possible. So again, that's going to backfire later on. So just resist that temptation, but you can get a lot. With Capricorn, can get away with a lot over the next couple of weeks. Sun and Venus are in the fourth house, so essentially good for legacies or good for inheritance of property. Jupiter's in the fifth house, good for children over the next year, and that's going to be consistent over the next year. Jupiter's aspecting K2, so essentially that'll be good for financial luck for this particular sign. For Aquarius, Aquarius actually has a good placement. It's going to be an authority figure or kind of a ruler planet for this sign, but again, Aquarius's nature is kind of hermetic. It's sort of like stays with self. And Mars, Rahu, Mercury in this sign, again, this is temptation to take the easy way out in terms of getting money. Try not to do that because it'll come back to bite you within about a week or so. Jupiter's in the fourth house, so essentially a lot of harmony at home. The Lord of the seventh is the Sun. Relationship partners will have health issues this month. Those will pass, I would say, within about 10 days, excuse me. And overall, K2 in the eighth, a lot of interest in investigation. And finally, Pisces. Pisces, our dear old friend, has Mars, Rahu, and Mercury, and Moon in it. So this should be a kind of a packed week for Pisces. Again, some danger of over expenditure. Almost every single sign has that this week. So Mars, this combination produces several good combinations. It creates a Raj Yoga with the Moon. It creates a Raj Yoga with Mars, and it creates a Raj Yoga with Mercury. So this sign should be able to do pretty much anything it wants this week. But again, this twisting of logic, so it'll be a good legal time for this chart. So this isn't always deception, to be honest with you, but it can include misrepresentation. But again, a good opportunity for money, but slowly coming. Jupiter's in the third house, strong desire for prominence, for security and stability. Kate, who's in the seventh, relationship life will seem a little bit boring or erratic. And Saturn in the 12th house, again, watch out for expenses. Now let's look at the map of the sky. I'll go through this kind of quickly because I don't think I have much time. And so let's look at where we have problems from. Mercury, we have communications issues near Hawaii, and again, all kinds of land issues in Alaska and Hawaii. That's still there. And some government seizures, um, some government misrepresentation of that. Jupiter's hit is close to California, but it's not really touching anything there. And it's really not, so it's sort of like in the middle of the ocean. It's really not a very, it, it really hits the map more so as we get towards Iran and the United Arab Emirates, those places. Okay, so also Sudan, I forgot to mention that there's almost no coverage as to what's happening in Sudan right now, so that's kind of interesting. Saturn is passing through Texas, where there are floods occurring right now, right? So these are Saturnian consequences. I saw some of the footage. It's really bad near Houston. And there's a moon line going through Louisiana. So there was a government scandal. There was also a government scandal in Texas. There was a Democratic congressperson accused of accepting bribes. Now that's an indictment. That doesn't mean that person will necessarily be convicted, but it is a scandal. Rahu causes scandals, Rahu moon in particular. And there's also a Mars line running through next to Louisiana and Alabama and Mississippi. Georgia, there's a Rahu line, a Rahu Mars line between Florida, roughly Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Western New York, and extending over. And if I want to include all these lines in one set, the eastern part of the United States, there is a lot of misrepresentation going on, a lot of political chicanery going on. And by that, I mean like both small events and large events. So the trial is happening in New York, obviously. So we have this Mercury Rahu tied in over here. And also Washington, D.C. is tied into this entire area. There are also some scandals happening in Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, down in Panama, I would even say in Mexico and Nicaragua, and down into Venezuela and Ecuador and Peru, and touching into Argentina and Chile, although Argentina's population center is over here. The Venus line is running through Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, close to Bolivia, and I think also it's touching on close to Buenos Aires. So I think you'll see increasing government control in those countries. This is especially true of legal systems, especially in Brazil. And we have a Saturn line running down through the Ivory Coast into Western Africa, and another moon line. So this indicates economic troubles in that part of the world, in Spain, Portugal, Ireland, government scandals in England, France, Spain, Algeria. I'm sorry, my apologies. Algeria over into Libya and down through Ghana and also into Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, and South Africa. So the Rahu line is also hitting pretty strongly in Finland, Poland, Italy, And so Europe is in a little bit of a state of scandal right now, or unpopularity or uprising right now. So you have to be careful that those regions I would look at. Turkey, just a lot of it was boycotting Israel economically, but there hasn't been a sign of any military action on their part. There's a Venus line cutting through through Syria, really, and surrounding Turkey and Ukraine and close to Moscow. Now, what that means, and we also have a sun line. So what that means to me is that Russia will get more aggressive in the war, and it'll be over sooner than we think. I don't know if those rockets will make a difference, to be honest with you. Also, there was government scandals in Saudi Arabia and excessive government control in Saudi Arabia, also in Iran, and also going up and hitting on Tajikistan, sorry, into what used to be called Tibet. And also some economic downturn in India and some publicity, especially around Bengal. Maybe some fighting in Ladakh and or some land disputes in Ladakh and Bangladesh. And we have Rahu Mercury lines all going through Vietnam, China, Indonesia. So governmental scandals are indicated there. Finally, we have Venus, Sun, Jupiter lines hitting all through Australia. So, and also through New Guinea. So I would say excessive government control and some economic downturns in New Zealand. So that's it for this week. If you like the channel, please share it, like, subscribe. I'll be putting up more videos shortly. And as always, I love you all. Don't be afraid of anything that's happening. This too shall pass. Again, to contact me, 508-525-0001 is the best way. Thank you so much for watching and have a blessed week. Don't let the world get to you. Okay? Bye-bye.